In 1990, the average American man reported having 6 close friends, people he could call at 2 in the morning, people who knew his struggles, his dreams, his fears, people who would show up if he needed help moving, or if his life was falling apart. 6 real friendships, not acquaintances, not work colleagues, not people he followed on social media. 6 genuine human connections. By 2020, that number had dropped to 1.2. And for men under 40, nearly 1 in 5 report having 0 close friends. 0. None. Nobody. They can actually talk to when things get hard. This isn't a Sigma male choosing solitude for strategic advantage. This isn't an introvert preferring books to parties. This is an epidemic. A friendship recession that's happened so gradually, most men didn't even notice it was occurring until they looked around one day and realized everyone was gone. Welcome to Primal Mind. I'm your host, and today we're examining the most underreported crisis affecting modern men, the complete collapse of male friendship over the last 35 years. We're not talking about feeling lonely sometimes. We're talking about structural, societal-level changes that have systematically destroyed the context where male bonding used to happen naturally. And we're going to break down exactly what happened, why it matters more than you think, and what you can actually do to rebuild intentional friendships in a world that's designed to keep you isolated. This is data-driven. This is research-backed, and if you're a man who feels like you somehow lost all your friends without quite understanding how it happened, this episode will explain everything. Let's start with what we lost. In 1990, men had multiple friendship contexts that overlapped and reinforced each other. You had your childhood friends from the neighborhood, your college roommates, your work buddies, your teammates from recreational sports, your friends from church or community organizations, your neighbors who you'd have over for barbecues. These weren't distinct separate categories. They overlapped. Your work buddy was also on your softball team. Your neighbor went to your church. Your college roommate moved to the same city and became part of your social ecosystem. This created redundancy. If one friendship faded because someone moved or got married or had kids, you still had 5 other contexts where friendships existed. The social fabric was thick. It had depth. It could withstand individual threads breaking because there were so many backup connections. Fast forward to 2025, most men have 1, maybe 2 friendship contexts. Usually work and maybe 1 hobby or recreational activity. That's it. And here's the brutal part. Both of those contexts are fragile. Your work friendships evaporate the moment you change jobs. Your hobby friendships are contingent on continued participation in that hobby. There's no overlap, no redundancy, no thick social fabric. Just thin, easily broken threads that disappear the moment circumstances change. So what happened? How did we go from 6 close friends to barely 1 in a single generation? Let me walk you through the 5 cultural shifts that destroyed male friendship infrastructure between 1990 and today. Cultural shift number 1, the suburbanization of social life and the death of third places. In 1990, men had what sociologists call third places, not home, first place, not work, second place, but third places. Bars where you knew the bartender and half the regulars. Community centers, bowling alleys, lodges, churches, coffee shops where you'd see the same guys every Saturday morning. These were informal gathering spaces where friendships formed without agenda or intention. You'd just show up, and connection happened organically. By 2010, most third places were gone, bowling alleys closed, bars became loud nightclubs, churches declined, community centers lost funding. The few coffee shops that remained were filled with people on laptops wearing headphones, signaling, "Don't talk to me." And crucially, suburban development patterns meant that most men no longer lived within walking distance of any third place, even if one existed. You had to drive everywhere, which meant every social interaction required planning, scheduling, intention. Nothing happened spontaneously anymore. And here's what research shows. Spontaneous, unplanned interactions are essential for friendship formation. When you have to schedule every social interaction, when you have to text 3 weeks in advance to coordinate calendars, friendship becomes work. It becomes an obligation you can justify skipping because you're tired or busy. The friction is too high, so friendships atrophy, not because you don't care, but because the infrastructure that supported effortless connection disappeared. Cultural shift number 2, economic pressure and the 60-hour work week. In 1990, the average professional worked 40 to 45 hours a week. There was time after work for softball leagues, for poker nights, for just hanging out. By 2015, knowledge workers were averaging 55 to 60 hours a week. Add in commute time, you're looking at 12-hour days. You get home at 7 or 8 p.m., you're exhausted. You've been on all day. The last thing you want to do is be social. You just want to decompress, watch something mindless, and go to sleep so you can do it again tomorrow. Weekends, those are for catching up on everything you couldn't do during the week. Errands, chores, family obligations, trying to exercise, trying to maintain your relationship if you're in one. There's no time. And even when there technically is time, you don't have the energy. Male friendship requires energy. It requires showing up, being present, engaging. When you're running on fumes from chronic work stress, friendship becomes a luxury you can't afford. So, you skip the poker night. You bail on the golf game. You text, "Sorry man, swamped at work," for the third time. And eventually, people stop inviting you. Not because they're mad, but because they assume you're too busy, and they're probably too busy themselves. Cultural shift number 3. Digital substitution and the illusion of connection. This is the big one. Between 2005 and 2015, social media went from novelty to ubiquity. Suddenly, you could keep in touch with hundreds of people without ever seeing them in person. You could scroll through their lives, see what they were up to, feel like you knew what was happening with them. This created an illusion of connection. You felt like you were still friends with your college roommate because you liked his vacation photos on Facebook. You felt like you were still connected to your high school buddies because you saw their posts about their kids. But here's what the research shows. Digital interaction does not create the neurochemical bonding that in-person interaction creates. When you're physically present with someone, laughing at the same joke, sharing the same experience, your brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. That's what creates the feeling of closeness, of trust, of genuine friendship. Digital interaction doesn't do that. It creates familiarity, but not intimacy. So what happened is men substituted digital familiarity for actual friendship and didn't realize they were trading something real for something hollow until the loneliness set in. And it's insidious because you don't feel lonely in the moment. You're scrolling, you're seeing people, you feel connected. It's only later, when you need actual support, actual human presence, that you realize you have no one to call. Because 500 Facebook friends is not the same as one real friend who'll show up at 2 in the morning. Cultural shift number 4, the decline of male-only spaces and the suspicion of male bonding. This one's controversial, but it's in the data. In 1990, male-only spaces were common and culturally accepted. Men's sports leagues, fraternal organizations, hunting and fishing trips, poker nights, guys' weekends. These weren't exclusionary in a malicious sense. They were recognition that male friendship has specific characteristics. Men bond through shared activity, not conversation. Through competition, humor, and shoulder-to-shoulder presence, rather than face-to-face vulnerability. By 2015, male-only spaces had become culturally suspect. They were seen as exclusionary, potentially toxic, vaguely threatening. Organizations that had been male-only for generations were pressured to become co-ed. Men who organized guys' weekends were accused of immaturity or worse. And something was lost. Not because women's presence is bad, but because the specific mode of male bonding requires a context where men can be unguarded in ways that are different from mixed-gender spaces. Research by Niobe Wei at NYU shows that boys have deep, intimate friendships in early adolescence. They talk about emotions, they're physically affectionate, they depend on each other. But by late adolescence, cultural pressure forces them to shut that down. They learn that male intimacy is suspicious, that emotional openness is weakness, that needing your friends makes you less of a man. So they retreat into superficial banter and activity-based connection. Which is fine, except when the activities disappear, there's nothing left. Because they never learned how to maintain emotional intimacy in a culturally approved way. Cultural shift number 5, geographic mobility and the end of lifelong proximity. In 1990, most people lived within 100 miles of where they grew up. Your childhood friends were still around. Your extended family was nearby. Your social network had decades of shared history. By 2010, the average American had moved 11 times. For professionals in knowledge industries, even more. You moved for college. You moved for your first job. You moved for a better opportunity. You moved for your partner's career. Every move, you left behind a social network and had to build a new one from scratch. And here's the problem. Friendship formation gets harder as you age. Research shows that it takes roughly 50 hours of interaction to move from acquaintance to casual friend. 90 hours to move from casual friend to real friend. 200 hours to move to close friend. When you're 18 and in college, you're spending that time organically through classes, dorms, parties, study groups. When you're 35 and you just moved to a new city for work, where are you going to find 200 unscheduled hours to spend with someone? You're not. So you end up with surface-level friendships that never deepen because the time investment required is impossible to make. Meanwhile, your closest friends are scattered across 5 different cities. You text occasionally. You see each other once a year if you're lucky. You tell yourself you're still close, but you're not. Not really, because friendship requires proximity and time. And modern life destroys both. So here we are. Third place is gone. Time crushed by work. Digital substitution replacing real connection. Male bonding culturally suspect. Geographic mobility destroying lifelong friendships. The result? 80% of male friendships lost in a single generation. The friendship recession. And the consequences are severe. Men without close friendships die earlier. They have higher rates of depression, anxiety, substance abuse. They perform worse at work. Their romantic relationships are less stable. They're more likely to radicalize politically. They're less resilient to setbacks. This isn't about being antisocial. This isn't about Sigma males choosing independence. This is about structural isolation causing measurable harm. And the worst part? Most men don't even realize how isolated they are until a crisis hits. A divorce, a job loss, a health scare. Suddenly, they look around and realize they have no one to call. No support system, no community, just a few hundred people they used to know who live somewhere else now. Okay, so that's the bad news. Here's the good news. You can rebuild intentional friendships even in a world designed to prevent them. But it requires understanding that friendship doesn't happen accidentally anymore. You have to engineer it. You have to create the context that used to exist naturally. Here's how. First, accept that you need to schedule friendship the way you schedule work. This sounds transactional and uncomfortable. Good. That discomfort is your attachment to how things used to work. In 1990, friendship happened spontaneously. In 2025, it doesn't. So you need recurring, scheduled social commitments. Not we should grab a drink sometime. That never happens. But every Thursday at 7 p.m., I'm at this bar. You should come. Standing invitation. Regular time. Low friction. People can show up or not, but it happens whether they do or not. This could be a weekly poker game, a monthly hiking group, a standing dinner reservation, a Sunday morning basketball run. The specific activity doesn't matter. What matters is consistency and low barrier to entry. You're recreating third-place infrastructure in a world that destroyed it. You're manually building what used to happen automatically. Second, prioritize proximity over affinity. You want friends you have a lot in common with. That makes sense. But here's what research shows. Proximity matters more than compatibility for friendship formation. You become friends with people you see regularly, not people who share your exact interests. So instead of trying to find your perfect friend soulmate, just find people who live near you and commit to showing up in the same place repeatedly. That guy at the climbing gym you see every Tuesday? That's a potential friendship, not because you have deep intellectual compatibility, but because you're in the same place at the same time, doing the same thing. That's enough. Friendship will develop from proximity and repetition. You don't need to force it. You just need to create the conditions where it can happen naturally. Third, embrace activity-based connection and stop waiting for emotional vulnerability. Most friendship advice for men sounds like therapy advice. Open up, be vulnerable, share your feelings. That's fine for some men in some contexts, but it's not how most male friendships work. Men bond through shared activity, through doing things together, not talking about feelings. So stop trying to have deep emotional conversations and just do stuff with people. Play sports, work on projects, go to concerts, build something, fix something. The emotional connection will develop through the activity, not through forced vulnerability. Research by Jeffrey Greif shows that men's friendships are often shoulder to shoulder rather than face to face. You're both looking at the thing you're doing together, not at each other. That's not inferior to face-to-face emotional intimacy. It's just different, and it's how most men naturally connect. So lean into it, find activities you enjoy, and invite people to do them with you. The friendship will form around the activity. Fourth, use technology for coordination, not substitution. Social media destroyed friendship when we let it replace in-person interaction. But technology can also facilitate friendship if you use it correctly. Create group chats for coordinating hangouts. Use shared calendars for planning. Use apps to organize activities. But never ever let digital interaction replace face-to-face time. The rule is simple. Technology for logistics, in-person for connection. If you follow that rule, technology becomes a tool that enables friendship rather than a substitute that destroys it. Fifth, invest in friendships before you need them. This is the hardest one because it requires long-term thinking. When your life is going well, when you're busy and successful, and everything's fine, it's tempting to let friendships slide. You don't need support right now, so why prioritize it? Here's why. Because when crisis hits, it's too late to build a support network. Friendships are like insurance. You pay the premium when you don't need it, so it's there when you do. So even when you're busy, even when you're tired, show up, answer the texts, make the plans, maintain the relationships, because the time to build community is before you desperately need it. Sixth, recognize that quality beats quantity. You don't need 6 close friends. You don't need a huge social network. Research by Robin Dunbar shows that humans can maintain approximately 5 intimate friendships at a time. That's it, not 50, not 500, 5. So stop trying to be friends with everyone and focus on depth with a few people. 5 real friendships will do more for your well-being than 500 superficial connections. Choose the people you invest in deliberately and commit to those relationships fully. The friendship recession is real. We lost 80% of close friendships in a single generation, not because men became less social or less capable of connection, but because the infrastructure that supported friendship collapsed. Third places disappeared. Work consumed our time. Digital interaction replaced presence. Male bonding became culturally suspect. Geographic mobility destroyed proximity. Those are structural problems that require structural solutions. You can't recreate 1990. Those contexts are gone. But you can build new ones. You can schedule regular hangouts. You can prioritize proximity. You can embrace activity-based connection. You can use technology correctly. You can invest before you need to. You can focus on depth over quantity. Do those things consistently for 6 months, and you'll have more real friendship than you've had in years. Not because you became more social, but because you deliberately created the conditions where friendship can form. The loneliness epidemic is not inevitable. It's the predictable result of specific cultural changes, and it can be reversed through intentional community building. So here's your homework. Identify 1 recurring social activity you can commit to weekly. Invite 3 people who live within 10 miles of you. Show up every week for 12 weeks, whether anyone else comes or not. Track what happens. I promise you'll be surprised. Thanks for listening to Primal Mind. If this resonated, subscribe and share with one friend who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay strategic, stay intentional, and remember, friendship doesn't happen by accident anymore. Build it deliberately or live without it.